Picture this: a cold stone cell, Paris, France, 1698. The most feared prison on earth, the Bastille, where men disappear and history forgets them. Inside one cell, something impossible is happening. A woman sits on the damp floor, no candle, no window, no name on any visitor's list. The guards outside her door have heard rumors that she is dangerous, that her ideas could destabilize the throne of Louis XIV himself. They have been told to make her disappear. But as they pass her door tonight, they stop walking. Because coming through the iron, barely audible like breath dressed in melody, is singing. Not desperate singing. Not the singing of someone begging to be released. The singing of someone who has found, in a dungeon, something the king in his palace does not have. They press their ears to the door. Some of them weep and do not know why. Inside, she is not planning an escape. She is not writing petitions. She is whispering psalms she memorized in the dark years of her marriage, verses planted in secret, now blooming in prison. And she is at peace. A peace so complete, so inexplicable, so real, that the fortress of fear has become, for her, a chapel. She would later say she could have stayed there forever, if it meant greater union with her Lord. Her name was Madame Guyon. She was not a general, not a theologian, not an ordained minister. She was a widow, a woman in a world that told women to be silent. And she turned every prison they put her in into holy ground, not because she was extraordinary, but because she had found something that chains cannot touch. The question her life asks you today is not, could you survive what she survived? The question is, what would you find if you lost everything she lost? Comment below with, I am willing to lose what cannot last. If you are ready to surrender your mirror, leave your sons behind, and sing in your darkest cell. And stay with us until the very end of this video, where we will reveal the hidden prayer discipline that kept Madame Guyon's fire burning for 69 years, which will enable you to run with endurance the race that God has specifically set before you. Before God uses someone greatly, He allows them to be wounded deeply. The year is 1648, and you need to understand the world this woman was born into, because without it, her story makes no sense. The 30 Years' War has just ended. For 3 unbroken decades, Christians slaughtered Christians across all of Western Europe. Some regions of the Holy Roman Empire lost half their population. France was a central player. The wounds are raw. The Church and the Crown have learned one lesson above all others: control. Any voice offering people direct access to God, outside institutional permission, is not merely inconvenient. It is a threat to the entire social order. Into this fractured world, in a quiet French town just south of Paris, a girl is born. Her name is Jeanne-Marie Bouvier de la Motte Guyon. Her father serves the king. Her mother is strictly pious, but distant. Jeanne grows up feeling unseen in her own home, shuttled between convents and cold family rooms. Then, at the age of 7, gangrene spread through her small body. Then tumors. Doctors offered little hope. Her family prepared for the worst. And then, without explanation, she recovered completely. Not gradually, not partially, completely. The physicians had no answer, but Jeanne did. She had lain in that sickbed whispering prayers no one had taught her, and something had visited her in that room. God was not distant. God was near. God visited people the world had given up on, and she was one of them. This would not be the last time. But here is what most people don't tell you about the young Jeanne Guyon, and it matters enormously. She was not born surrendered. Alongside her spiritual hunger ran a fierce, embarrassing internal war. She spent hours studying her own reflection in the mirror. She devoured romance novels. She was consumed by her own beauty, and simultaneously crushed by guilt, secretly longing to be a martyr for God, vanity and consecration, self-obsession and self-sacrifice. The battle was real, and it raged for years. Can you relate to that? That war between who you are and who you sense God is calling you to be. And then, one afternoon, in the quiet of her room, she picked up a needle. She was not yet a teenager. She had been reading about the suffering of Christ, and something inside her burned with a longing she could not name or contain. Before she fully understood what she was doing, she pressed the needle to her own skin, attempting to sew a cross into her flesh. Stop there. Let that image sit. This was not performance. This was not piety for an audience. This was a child, alone, deciding that no price was too high, before she had any theology to explain it, before she had any language to describe it. She was not born a saint, but she was born willing. And God never wastes willing. At 12, her family sent her to a convent school, and for the first time, her soul could breathe. There she encountered the writings of Saint Francis de Sales and Madame de Chantal, mystics who spoke of interior devotion, of God as someone within reach of any ordinary heart. Their words were water to a thirst she had carried since childhood. She was not inventing a new spirituality. She was discovering a tradition, and she was a student before she ever became a teacher. 2 years later, her family pulled her out. They had other plans. Barely 16, weeks from her 16th birthday. Having known this man for only 3 days, Jeanne was given in marriage to Jacques Guyon, a wealthy man considerably older than her, chronically ill, and completely dominated by his cruel mother. What should have been a home became a proving ground. Her mother-in-law criticized her constantly, supervised her every move, instructed household servants to mistreat her deliberately. Her husband, when his health failed, took his fear and frustration out on Jeanne. She gave birth to 5 children, 2 died in childhood. She described her life in that house in words that still ache. My food became the bread of sorrow, and my drink the cup of tears. But watch what she does with this. In the early mornings, when her husband slept and the house finally fell silent, Jeanne would light a low candle and kneel. She memorized the Psalms and whispered them in the dark, not loudly enough to be heard, but deeply enough to be changed. She began writing small thoughts on scraps of paper. If I possess you, nothing shall I lack. Take what I am. Remove what does not honor you. She had no idea, no possible way of knowing, that those same psalms, planted in secret in that suffocating house, would be the very verses singing through her lips 20 years later in the Bastille. Nothing done in secret for God is ever wasted. Then came the smallpox epidemic. Her mother-in-law refused to let her leave the house. So Jeanne stayed, nursed her sick family, and contracted the disease herself. When it was over, the beauty she had spent years obsessing over in the mirror was gone, disfigured, irreversibly. And when she finally looked at her ruined face in the mirror for the first time, can you guess what she felt? Joy, not grief, not despair. Joy. The trap was broken. The idol the enemy had used against her for years, the vanity, the mirror, the internal war, was over. The thing she could never conquer by willpower had been removed by grace. She called the scars a gift. What the world saw as catastrophe, she experienced as spiritual freedom. Then, in 1668, when she was approximately 20 years old, everything changed. A Franciscan friar came to visit. She confessed to him that she had tried everything, the rituals, the devotions, the prayers, and could not find God. She felt only distance. He looked at her and said 7 words that would alter church history. Madame, you seek without what is within. She described what happened next as like an arrow which pierced my heart. In that single moment, something broke open inside her. A burning sensation, fire and oil, flooded her. She wept for hours. She felt the love of God not as a doctrine, but as a consuming, overwhelming personal reality. Hours of prayer felt like moments. She described it later. Thy name is as precious ointment poured forth. The me had begun to dissolve into the thou. This was not religious emotion. This was union. And from this moment, she could not be silenced. In 1676, her husband died. Jeanne was 28 years old, wealthy, titled, and free. Everyone expected her to remarry. She had offers from high nobility. She was young enough to rebuild a comfortable life. She gave her inheritance to the poor instead. And then she knelt, not in a cathedral, not before a priest, in the quiet of her own room, before the God she had pursued through illness and marriage and grief and loss. She gave herself away. She took private vows of chastity, poverty, and obedience, not to an institution, but to God alone. She was not entering a convent. She was entering a covenant, like a bride before a groom, like a soldier laying down a sword. She surrendered every remaining claim to her own life. Take what I am yours. She would spend no more energy managing her own story. The pen was now in different hands, and immediately, as if heaven had been waiting, she began to write. She could have been comfortable. She chose to be obedient. Before we follow her into the Alps and the palace courts, you need to understand what she actually taught, because this is the reason thousands were transformed by it, and the reason powerful men feared it enough to imprison her for it. From her book, A Short and Easy Method of Prayer, her teaching rested on 3 movements so simple they were revolutionary. First, pray the scripture, not for information, for encounter. Read slowly, just a few verses, until a single word or phrase touches your heart. Then stop completely, hold that word gently, rest in it. Do not analyze it, let it nourish you. The goal is not knowledge, it is presence. Second, simple attention. Throughout the ordinary day, working, walking, cooking, gently turn your attention inward to the quiet awareness of God dwelling within you. Your mind will wander. That is expected. The practice is the gentle return, again and again, without self-condemnation. A quiet, continuous awareness. You are here. That is enough. Third, abandonment. Yield not just outcomes, but the entire spiritual process itself to God. Stop trying to manufacture your own holiness. Perform every duty fully. This was never about neglecting responsibility, but do it without frantic inner striving, without anxiety over results, without condemning yourself every time you fall short. Stop paddling so hard. Trust the current. She put it plainly. Prayer is the key of perfection and of sovereign happiness. The way to become perfect is to live in the presence of God. This was dangerous. In a world where faith meant elaborate ritual and institutional permission, she was telling ordinary people, servants, merchants, mothers, farmers, that they needed none of it to know God directly. Just the open heart, just the turned attention, just the surrendered will. She wrote her book. It spread like fire. With her spiritual director, Father Lacombe, she traveled through the Alps, Geneva, Turin, Grenoble. She gave her sons into the care of others and took her young daughter into the unknown with her. Let that cost land for a moment. She founded hospitals. She served the poor. She sat with noble women and peasants alike, teaching not theology, but surrender. And then something extraordinary began to happen. People started being transformed without her saying a single word. She would enter a room and something would shift. Skeptics would find themselves undone. Priests who came to debate her would leave weeping. Entire families were converted in her presence. Guards were unsettled. Critics went silent. The gift of silence, years of interior prayer paid for in suffering, had made her presence itself a conduit of the divine. This is the miracle of the hidden life. This is what the spiritual disciplines produce. Not a performance, not a technique, a carrier. Then, one afternoon in a small mountain town, a nun was brought before her, bedridden for months, her body wasting, all remedies exhausted. The room was full of witnesses. Jeanne did not pray a long prayer. She did not call for anointing oil. She looked at the woman with the simple authority of someone who has nothing left to prove and everything to trust. And she said, "Rise, and be no longer sick." The room went silent. 1 second, 2 seconds. The woman sat up. The color returned to her face. She swung her legs over the edge of the bed and stood. The room erupted. Jeanne turned and walked quietly away. She said later, "Jesus Christ performed the miracle through his word. I was merely the instrument." She also confessed something that stopped those who heard it in their tracks. The books she was producing, the commentaries, the spiritual treatises pouring from her pen with astonishing speed. She could not fully account for them by her own intellect. She described the Holy Spirit as the true author. She described herself as merely the pen. Heaven was writing through surrendered hands. That is not mysticism as spectacle. That is the logical conclusion of total abandonment. When the self steps aside completely, What flows through is no longer limited by the self. Eventually, she reached Paris. She gained access to Madame de Maintenon and briefly taught at Saint-Cyr. And there she encountered Archbishop Fenelon, one of the most brilliant theological minds in France, who sat with her, listened to her, and was never the same again. Her depth attracted depth. Her fire lit fires. For a brief, glittering moment, it appeared the tide was turning, but power was watching, and power was afraid. The fire does not destroy gold. It only removes everything that is not gold. Religious authorities grew alarmed. A woman, traveling, teaching clergy, without permission. In a nation still raw from 30 years of religious war, the church and the crown had zero tolerance for unsanctioned spiritual movements. They accused her of quietism, the charge that she was teaching people they could reach God without the church's mediation, bypassing every structure that kept both institution and throne in power. This was not a minor theological dispute. It was a political threat. Then one morning, Father Lacombe, her closest spiritual ally, the man who had walked beside her through every alpine village and every conversion, was arrested before her eyes and taken away. She had a clear and unmistakable warning of what was coming. She continued teaching. Bishop Bossuet, the most powerful churchman in France, celebrated throughout Europe for his brilliance, initially showed sympathy. He met with her. He discussed her ideas. He seemed genuinely interested. But as her influence grew, as her book spread into more homes and more clergy came under her effect, something changed. Fear replaced curiosity. In 1694, Bossuet convened the Council of Issy. He examined her writings with meticulous care, then condemned them. He chose his institution over the truth he had glimpsed in her pages. A brilliant man, choosing power. And Jeanne, handed his verdict, submitted with humility. She did not fight. She did not publish a rebuttal. She simply trusted. Her accusers found this more unsettling than defiance. When warned to stop or face arrest, she said, "They can imprison my body. They cannot imprison what I have found." Her interrogators discovered something that unnerved them far more than her arguments. She would not fight back. She spoke with meekness. She did not defend herself. She simply trusted. And this disturbed them in ways her writings never could. You can argue with a doctrine. You cannot argue with that kind of peace. In 1688, she was arrested for the first time and confined to a convent prison for 8 months. That first night, on the cold stone floor, she asked the question every soul in darkness eventually asks, "Lord, where are you?" Silence. And then, the same quiet, deep certainty she had felt as a 4-year-old watching a procession pass a window. He was there. She placed her hand over her chest and whispered, "If you are here, it is enough." The next morning, the nun in charge opened the small window in the cell door and stopped. Inside, Jeanne sat calm, eyes still, no revolt, no despair. A surrender so complete it confused everyone who witnessed it. Her peace disturbed her captors more than her teachings ever had. During those months, something inside her finally died. Not quickly, not cleanly, slowly in the dark. 3 very specific things surrendered. The need to be understood. Pause there. How much of your energy goes to making sure people understand your motives? That died in her, the hope of being accepted. How many decisions do you make based on whether someone will approve? That died in her. The desire to control the narrative of your own life. That desperate, exhausting grip on how your story looks to the world. That died in her, and in the place where those 3 things died, Christ lived even stronger. When she was released, those who watched her walk through the prison gates reported the same thing. She seemed freer than people who had never been imprisoned at all. But this was only the beginning. In 1695, she was arrested again. This time, there was no swift resolution. She was taken to Vincennes first. Cold stone, narrow walls. Then transferred to the Vaugirard convent, each step a calculated escalation of humiliation. Then, finally, by personal order of King Louis XIV himself, the last door. The Bastille. The sky was heavy on the day she entered. A fine rain fell, each drop hammering the cobblestones like an omen. The doors opened with a creak that was not just sound, but sentence. Chains dragged across stone corridors. The door closed behind her. She sat on the floor, placed her hands on her knees, breathed slowly. She whispered, "Lord, you know." That was not defeat. That was the deepest surrender of her life. There were no clocks, no light. She lost track of time. Days stretched into each other in the cold dark. Then one morning, if it was morning, she woke with a brokenness so complete it brought her to the stone floor. For the first time, she wept without trying to hold back her voice. For the life she had lost, for the home she never had, for the children she could not embrace, for the loneliness that had followed her since childhood. And as she wept, something invaded the cell. Not a vision, not emotion, presence, a certainty that cannot be explained, only recognized. She lifted her face. There was no light. Yet it was as if the darkness had changed temperature, and the words that came from her mouth were unplanned. "If you are here, then this place is holy." That is how the Bastille, the fortress of fear, became her chapel. From that day, guards passing her cell heard something that made no sense. Singing, not loud. A murmur, like prayer dressed in melody. The psalms she had whispered in the dark during her marriage. The very same verses, planted in secret in a suffocating house, now singing through iron bars. Some of the guards wept. They could not explain it. She prayed for sick prisoners. She guided souls through smuggled letters. Her pen never stopped. In years of total captivity, the longest and darkest stretch behind the very walls of the Bastille itself, she produced volumes of writings, her autobiography, poetry, and commentaries composed in the dark. Words the world was trying to erase, written by the hand the world had chained. She wrote, "I was in prison, but I found no restraint within. My soul was free, and it found all things good. God alone was my all, and I had all in him." And then, the line that will permanently rewire how you see suffering. She later said she would have stayed in the Bastille forever if it meant greater union with her Lord. She is not the victim of this story. She is the freest person in it. What God brands, time cannot erase. In 1703, after 7 years of total captivity across multiple prisons, the gates opened. She walked out frail in body, unbroken in spirit. The first words she spoke to the world after years of captivity were not a demand for vindication, not a defense of her writings, not a declaration of war against her accusers. "I am nothing, God is all, and I am content to be whatever He makes me." The woman who walked out of the Bastille was defined entirely by that sentence. She bore no bitterness toward those who had imprisoned her, condemned her writings, and turned her friends against her. Fenelon, the great archbishop who had defended her openly, had been exiled from Paris for his loyalty to her. The cost of standing with Madame Guyon had destroyed even brilliant careers, and she bore no bitterness toward any of it. This was not performed grace. It was the fruit of total abandonment. She retired quietly to a small house in Blois, on the banks of the Loire River. Those who knew her in those final years reported, she walked slowly, spoke softly, and laughed little. But when she spoke of Christ, her eyes shone like someone looking far away, seeing something others in the room could not yet see. People traveled from across Europe to sit with her. One visitor, having spent an afternoon in her presence, said she carried an atmosphere of eternity. She was not pointing to herself. She never had been. In June 1717, she asked them to open the window. She wanted to feel the air. She wanted to hear the birds one last time. Seated in a simple armchair, hands resting in her lap, she whispered, "Lord, I come." No fear, no struggle, no unfinished business. A boat reaching the shore after a long voyage, not wrecked, not abandoned, arrived. On screen, in her own words, her written epitaph, "I shall die only once, but that will be for eternity. I shall lose myself in Thee, O my God, to find myself eternally in Thy love." A drop of water falling into the ocean does not disappear. It becomes the ocean. Her book, A Short and Easy Method of Prayer, became one of the most widely read devotional works in Christian history. Here is why that matters, and who it reached. Her core conviction was this: Salvation is entirely God's gift. Grace is never earned. God's favor cannot be manufactured by human effort. This sounded to Catholic ears like dangerous radicalism, but to Protestants, raised on Luther and Calvin, steeped in the theology of grace, it sounded like home. A Catholic mystic writing with the theological heartbeat of the Reformation. That is why she crossed lines that almost no one in that era crossed. John Wesley read her, and his verdict was precise. There is here a love for Christ that cannot be faked. He named her one of the greatest Christians since the 1st century. The Quakers, persecuted in England, found in her a guiding light. As they fled to Pennsylvania, they carried her influence into the New World, her words crossing the Atlantic in the hands of the exiled and the brave. The Lutheran pietists of Germany, the Methodist revival across England, the deeper life movement in America. Watchman Nee, whose book, The Normal Christian Life, reshaped evangelical Christianity across Asia. Jesse Penn Lewis, whose writings on spiritual warfare equipped an entire generation of intercessors. Hudson Taylor, the man who opened inland China to the gospel. Andrew Murray, South Africa's greatest devotional writer, all shaped by words written in a dungeon by a widow who was told to be silent. The woman who was condemned as a heretic became the mother of half of modern Christianity's interior life. She was silenced, yet her voice still speaks. She was condemned, yet her words have freed millions. She was imprisoned, yet her spirit soared higher than every wall they built against her. The same God who found her in the Bastille is searching for someone like her today. If this video has been a blessing to you, consider becoming a channel member. Members get early access to every new documentary, behind-the-scenes research notes, and a community of people who are serious about answering the call of God in their generation. The link is in the description below. Madame Guyon lost everything the world said she needed: beauty, reputation, freedom, family approval, and discovered the one thing the world cannot give and cannot take. If God could build an empire of souls through a widow in a dungeon, He can build something extraordinary through you. In whatever prison you are standing in right now, comment below with, "I am willing to lose what cannot last." If this story has stirred something in you that refuses to be quiet, don't forget to hit that notification bell. Like and subscribe to Cloud of Witnesses for more life-changing stories of faith that will equip you to boldly fulfill the call of God in your life. This week, choose one of Madame Guyon's 3 prayer methods and practice it daily for 7 days. Begin with just 5 minutes. Open your Bible, read slowly until a single verse touches your heart. Then close the book and simply remain in that word. No analysis, no striving, just presence. Expected outcome: you will begin to discover the difference between talking about God and resting in Him. Now, if a widow imprisoned in the darkest dungeon in France could produce volumes of revelation in the dark and change the spiritual landscape of the Western world, what could God do through a man who had nothing but faith, a journal, and complete dependence on God alone? What happens when a man with no income, no guarantees, and no visible support decides to simply ask God and never ask anyone else? Could that kind of radical trust actually feed 10,000 orphans? Check out this next video to discover how George Miller proved that prayer is not preparation for the work. Prayer is the work.